Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Elaine Snee. I want to make sure I do pronounce that right. She is a former Catholic nun, and she's an author of Lead, How Women in Charge Claim Their Authority. Boy, we've been trying to claim our authority for a very, very long time. She says from the C-suite to the Senate floor, women in leadership positions are at a historic high, and research shows how women are more effective than men in 84% of competencies associated with leadership. Yet many accomplished and capable women continue to struggle with issues related to ambition, power, and authority. What explains this disconnect? Well, she says, who has been at the forefront of women's leadership development for more than 24 years? It's available to share, going to share her perspective here with us today on how we claim that authority. Informative, uplifting, empowering. Lead is a leadership book for our times. It has received advanced praise from business leaders, academics, experts on women leadership, including Sally Helgenson, best author of How Women Rise and the Female Vision and the Female Advantage. Her experience as a Catholic nun affords her a unique perspective on women leaders in the roles of authority. She lives and worked with a woman who ran a large educational nonprofit institutions where she learned many, many things that we're going to be talking about today. So let us dive right into it, folks. I'm praying that you cannot hear the horrible construction going on outside my window. But that's the way life is, right? You know, sometimes I think women can take that leadership role just because whatever hand we're dealt, we just know we have to roll up our sleeves and go, okay, what are we going to do about this? Welcome to the show, love.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a delight to be here.
Authority, I think, is something we know very well. And it's either been imposed upon us or we know how to take charge when it's necessary, right? That's inbuilt in us. You know, as a parent, you look at as a mother and what they've got to go through. You know, they're the nurturer, they're the guider, they're the teacher, you know, they're the housekeeper, everything. Look at the label. When people say well, I'm going back into the workforce, but I'm not qualified, and you've raised 2 or 3 children, what are you not qualified in? You know, look at the roles that you played. We're always playing leadership roles, but why is it not seen as something being, you know, of authority?
So I became very interested in that because I had always believed that women had all the skills to lead and to mobilize people, to get work done, to roll up their sleeves, as you said. And as a Catholic nun, I had 18 years of experience where all of the roles of authority were held by women. Our order ran Catholic colleges for women and K through 12 schools. And from principal on down, they were all women. I also had the experience of living with some of the nuns in communities. So one year, my principal in the high school lived across the hall from me. So I learned a lot about authority at work and what it's like at home. But to go back to your question, I became really interested in this and decided to study women's psychology, women's psychological development, to see what was the world missing? You know, what made women so capable to be good leaders, but they seem to not be chosen for or to choose the roles of authority. So long story short, I was in a leadership class where all of the guys were, you know, Mr. Powerful and, you know, the great man theory of leadership. And we're having trouble capturing the importance of listening, of collaborating, of including. And the women were like, duh, what's going on? And a bell went off for me that the leadership theory that was being taught, and that was the 90s, was really addressed to a stereotypical male model of leadership and authority. And so I began by interviewing women who held roles of authority. And I wanted to understand what it was like for them in that position, not just to exercise leadership, but actually hold responsibility for hiring, firing, promoting, giving difficult feedback, making hard decisions. And I was really interested in seeing what it was like when it was a woman in authority over other women. And that research led me to some conclusions that for women, a few things get in their way in relationship to roles of authority. One is women in the world of work tend toward perfectionism. Mm-hmm. They want to deliver the perfect project. They want it done with the I's dotted and T's crossed, and they end up delivering 150%. I often say to my clients, just cut back to 100%, and you'll have all this extra time for other things that are important. Just cut back to 100. That's all I'm asking, just 100. And they laugh because they know it's true. Mm-hmm. So I think that keeps them from feeling they could do a perfect job. And I also think it has a lot to do with relationships.
Yes.
One of the women I interviewed for my dissertation spoke about when she was in the role of authority over another woman, she had one eye on the relationship and one eye on the responsibility and the role. And that led me to think about what happens when you have eyes on two different things. You actually go blind. It's a condition called lazy eye. If your eyes are pointing in different directions, they have to be corrected or you'll go blind in one eye. And so that metaphor led me to think about how can women develop both eyes? How can they develop their sense of authority in tandem, in single sight with their emphasis on relationships?
I mean, it's kind of, we're bored up with blinkers here. And I think if we could just open those up a little bit, we would actually realize we have kind of quite a panoramic view of things, and we can assess things very quickly, can't we? We don't just come from the brain or the intellect or the ego. Sometimes ego gets in the way, but that's normally, especially if we're driven to achieve something, that intuitiveness steps in. Oh, she's saying one thing, but I feel she's really saying this. And so it's not necessarily having the eye on it, it's having the intuition on it, that, connection to what's really being said and what really needs to be addressed. And I feel women are very, very good at that if we allow ourselves to tune more into it.
I agree. There are three things that you just said I want to go back to. The first is when you used your hands around blinders. I think that while I encourage a single sight, women at work often use the blinders to focus on their work, their team, their responsibility. And it's critical to look out and look up, to build relationships in all directions. The second thing you said is that you were talking about connecting to the intuition. I encourage women to really pay attention to their inner voice, not only in terms of insight about other people and situations, but above all about what they want.
Yeah.
Because I think far too often women have not gotten into roles of authority because they haven't realized they wanted to, or they have silenced that and said, I have two stories in the book. One is Ginny Romedy, who's the former CEO of IBM. And she tells a story of when her boss was moving on pretty far into her career. He came to her and said, you're going to get my job. And she was like, oh, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And she went home and told her husband, and he was like, let's think about this.
Yes.
How will you feel in 3 weeks if you don't take this job? So I think women really need to be in touch with their desire and listen to that.
Not sell themselves short.
Absolutely.
Which I think we're kind of conditioned to do so. The man is the superior, we are the inferior. So therefore, how could we step into a man's shoes?
True. I try to avoid, there were always gender comparisons involved, but I try to stick with what is the woman's experience and what impedes her, rather than the comparison to the man, because I think that has served women poorly.
Yes, but that's what's in the way, though. That thought process. We've been conditioned that we will never be able to be, in that power position, with it. We haven't got the capabilities of holding it together and making those big calls, because we've been conditioned to do that from childhood.
Absolutely. Right? There's conditioning, but there's an element that women inflict on themselves that they can change.
Oh yeah, we can change everything.
I think it's the like the Ginny Romedy story. I had a client who, when her boss left, I went to her right away and said, have you put your name in? And she's like, oh, no, I have to go have a job at a smaller company and then come back. And I said, go talk to your male colleagues and see if they would do that.
Right.
And she came back and she applied. So there's this perfectionism that they bring to their career path. I've also discovered over time that there's another issue where women tend to believe that that position is going to demand of them more than they want to give. That it will detract from their family, it will detract from interests. And they don't give themselves credit that, like they have balanced everything to this point, they will figure it out.
Yes.
And there was a wonderful executive at, I think it was Pepsi, I've forgotten her name, but I remember reading about her. And no, it was GE. And she would leave every day at 5. And this was like unheard of, but she was very clear. She got her job done in the time allotted. And so women, as you said, sell themselves short on what they can do and need to give themselves the chance.
I also think we need to look at hours of the day. Somebody may be 8 hours at their job, but are they being productive? If you are productive, you're creative, you know how to delegate, you know people's strengths around you, that's good for this one, that's good for this one, let's everybody put in. And then all of a sudden, 4 hours later, you've accomplished,
Exactly.
and that's the thing, that efficiency. And we know as women, because I think that's genetically inside of us, of the, I'll go back to running the home. If you're not efficient, there's going to be chaos. And so we know that how to get things done and just get on with it.
That's right.
Rather than like, oh, it's got to happen in this 8-hour period. No, it's let's just get it done. We've got time over afterwards. We'll have a cup of tea.
That's right. We've learned how to do it in so many settings that we just have to transfer those skills from one part of our lives to another.
Yeah. One of the things that I do a lot on the shows, and the business shows particularly, is, collaboration and camaraderie and compassion. Those are three things that, most certainly are being inserted in business today to have productive businesses that not only serve their staff, but serve the clientele, and that will bring the profit, right? Because people see the company of integrity. But it's giving time to get to know the people who are working for you, their stories. I always say that the village is only as strong as everybody's participation.
That's
Now
right.
you've got this person that's good at that, this person that's good at that. There isn't competitiveness there. Each one has their own beautiful gift. And that village is only as strong as how you support each other, how you celebrate each other, how you're there in the bad times and the good times. I would like to see that mentality in business. A woman, even if she's the CEO, crisis at home. I don't care if you're a man, woman, or an it. If there's a crisis at home, that crisis at home, it should come first, right? Same as if there's a crisis at work, the family understands you're going to spend extra time at work. And it's that support of each other rather than the judgment of each other.
That's right. That actually triggers another interesting piece I found in my research, and I have experienced over and over with women in my coaching, which is women tend to have unspoken expectations of each other, especially of women in authority. So they will tolerate certain behaviors in a male boss that they will not tolerate in a female boss.
Mm-hmm.
Or they will expect that because she's a woman, she's going to be more supportive or understanding or fill in the blank toward me because I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That our identity as women should somehow gain me special privileges in the world of business. So I'm often cautioning women when they're talking about what happened with another woman at work,
Mm-hmm.
to step back and let's just look at what's going on. Let's pretend that person is a guy, and how would you be reacting? Or what's really going on here that is about the business?
Yes.
But
And not
is
the
there
gossip.
anything else?
Yeah.
Another undercurrent that is not serving either of you very well.
Right. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And everybody looked at her as, they're petrified
Yes,
of her, in awe of her. She was the witch. But then you saw how her marriage was breaking down, how everything else was breaking down. And very often we buy into the facade of things. Right. And it's like, especially, I think it's a kind of the conditioning and expectation of the human race is to put on a face, present that face, and whatever else is going on behind, you don't let anyone know. I don't find that, and I come from a generation where it's like, you don't hang your dirty linen out. That's right. And I've always come from is they speak your truth, because how do people know if you're vulnerable or going through hard times unless you address it? Now, it doesn't mean you bring your melodrama, but you can address it, because I have found that those that have willing to say, I am vulnerable right now, or this is going on in my life right now, I'd like everyone to step up because I'm going to have to step back a bit. People are immediately there to support. But if you're there all the time, I'm tough, I can handle anything, I'm made of steel, there is a resentment towards you. And there's also a lack of permission for you to be vulnerable yourself.
That's right. That's right. And being vulnerable allows others to be vulnerable.
Yes.
I also think the point you're raising is very important right now in the virtual world.
Mm-hmm.
I have grave concerns, as most people do, that our life online is not affording us those off moments where we can share, oh, this just happened to my father, or my sister's house was flooded. We get on the Zoom call, we do our meeting, and we get off. And in person, there were a lot of kind of lost moments in between meetings, that are vital moments to build relationships and to touch base and to check out, why does someone seem upset or angry? What's going on? And I think the technology and the kind of guidance on meetings needs to advance to provide us with more of these check-ins. I know some companies are doing a lot of that and have figured it out better than others, but I think I have grave concern about how do we allow ourselves to be human with each other across a computer screen the way when we're missing the human touch.
I think a lot of it, one of the things I've seen with like talk shows, they had to go to the Zoom talk rather than, obviously the in-person. And you see this person that put up on a pedestal, accolades for in their home, maybe kind of haven't had a haircut in a while, the kids come running in, the cat jumps up on their lap, and all of a sudden, instead of like, oh, revered up, that they're human like us. They've got chaos in their lives like us. And I think you can actually feel the, a breath of relief coming from people. Oh, well, what goes on in my house is going on in their house. And it's like keeping it real, because it's up to obviously the leader to set the stage, right? And if it's like, okay, business at the top, pajama bottoms, and then everybody stand up and show off your pajama bottoms, you've suddenly you've broken the ice there. And I think it's up to the leader to set a different stage of that. One of the guys that I talked to that had pivoted, is that he's in the car doing his business call, with the shirt, suit, etc. on the top, then that comes off and off, he is surfing, and then back in the car to do another call.
That's really taking advantage of it all.
Exactly. But I think we can still have that touch if the person in charge sets the stage for it.
Right. But I also think that it's incumbent on everyone on these calls to really pay attention to each other.
Yes.
Because I was talking this morning with someone who asked about introverts and extroverts. And there are different styles, and clearly in group meetings on Zoom, some people talk more than others. And I think we have to step up and own responsibility to make sure that the quiet people, the introverts, are speaking up. And if they're not, we invite them to. Yes. And we make sure that what they say doesn't get stolen by someone else.
I mean, again, as the leader, you're the conductor of this orchestra.
Right. And I would argue that we are all leaders. Mm-hmm. So we all share the responsibility for the community and the conversation, even though one person sets the direction, and her or his behavior certainly has greater impact. Yeah. But I think we all have to really contribute when we're online in a way that we needed to in person, but it's even more critical in virtual.
Yeah, I know somebody who I've been on a couple of calls with different type of groups, and it's like, everybody introduce yourself, right? And, if you're working in the same company, check in, how are things going for you, and everybody state where they're at. Right. I had a water main burst, or this and that.
Right.
It's like,
right.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you call this plumber? I've got a friend who can help you with that. How about the first 10 minutes being that? Making that connection, inviting people, letting them know they're a part of the arena here, instead of straight into business. Okay, folks, everybody take a deep breath. Let's get into business now. And everybody feels like they're more relaxed. They've been heard, they've been seen, and they're more eager to participate.
Absolutely. Because virtual is going to be here with us for a long time.
Yes.
And we have to be careful not to slip into unhealthy habits.
Right. Again, the facade, right? The head and shoulders smile and nobody knows what's going on. So I think it's, again, keeping it real, keeping it honest. I think one of the things that we're demanding from our leaders today, no matter female, male, we are demanding that upfront honesty. And we've had the wool pulled over our eyes. We've had the one side of the mouth saying one thing and the other on the other side, and we're tired of it. We're tired of it. We're all a bit beaten down right now with the last 18 months or longer. And everybody's just like, can we just keep it real? Now, you can have opposite opinions on things, but an absolute golden rule that, because I'm a true colors coach, the 4 key personalities, everybody's going to have a different view of it, a different perspective. Everybody lay your view down. Now you're seeing the whole picture and you're understanding more from where people are coming from before you go and pass judgment or spit fire, right? So have some golden rules, or if you are going to be open and honest, you're willing to listen to everybody's point of view first. And I think we want that honesty. We want that candor, because we're seeing so much. We came together so much at the beginning of COVID, where everybody had empathy for each other. Now we're just seeing the wrench and the division again. And it's like the war is at the present moment on the pandemic. Why are we at war with each other? And this is where leadership comes in. It's like, we all bleed the same. We all need the same. Let us hear one another.
One of the people that I work with has places a great deal of emphasis on generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking a lot about that over the last few months. And how can we be generous in how we show up and receive people? How can we be generous in listening? How can we be generous in our compassion? And how can we have an attitude of generosity? There's a whole movement about gratitude, and that's another virtue. But I think if we can bring those attitudes and really be thinking about how will I be generous in this meeting? Because long ago, I realized that how we think impacts how we feel. That our thinking, our inner dialogues impact how we feel, and that comes out in how we show up.
Right.
And so the place we can have the greatest impact is in the starting point. And what is it I want to think about going into this meeting? Am I, ready with my big guns to take someone out, or am I going to go in generously with a question? And I find myself trying to remember that as I'm writing emails, because an email that's written in haste can do more damage. And to just pause and think, okay, maybe I need to wait an hour before I send it, so that I have the right frame of mind from which it's coming.
Yeah. I had something happen to me a month ago that kind of rocked my world a little bit, not for good. And it shook me up, and it threw me through all of the emotions. And, people say, well, just do this and just do that. And it's like, I can't do anything right now. I'm going through the anxiety, the anger, the anguish, the depression, the disbelief. I'm going through all of that. And it's only when I'd gone through the process of those emotions could I vow, okay, so what can I do about it? And then step into the clarity. And I decided I had to put a show on it, because we are knee-jerk people. We want to react straight away, but in our lack of clarity, we're not going to be articulate. And we're going to be, as you said, guns firing. And that sometimes we just need to go for the emotional process and spend it for us to really assess the situation and really what is happening and see it for what it is, and then what we're empowered to do about it.
That's right. Someone said to me recently, there's power in the pause.
Oh boy, yes.
Whether that's waiting to respond or what you're going to say, I think there's power in the pause.
Yes, my ex-husband used to say to me, when I went silent, that's when he got scared.
Yes, I had a mother like that.
I can say, and you're not listening, and then I go quiet. It's like,
Danger.
Yeah, exactly, because nobody's hearing the words. right? So they don't know what's going to come out next. Um, Women in leadership, let's just face it, we've always been leaders. In whatever role we've taken, we've always been leaders, because we're just natural people to see what needs to be done and find a way to do it, or find someone else who can do it better than we can. So I think we've always been great collaborators and great leaders in our own right, but we haven't had the authority behind that leadership to be recognized as leaders. That tide is definitely changing now, isn't it?
It's changing, definitely changing. Not fast enough.
No.
But one of the things that I find very heartening and exciting is that women are now bonding together. They're building connections and relationships. So if you watch on the internet, there are so many organizations of women that are coming together. There's one now called The Chief, and another one called, the name escapes me.
It will come to you, and when it does, blurt it out.
Lots of organizations where women can come together and support each other. And I think that is going to help move women into roles of authority. I was in Boston about, let's say 20 years ago, when the four hospitals had women who were not yet CEOs, but in the C-suite. And these women got together and started meeting regularly to talk about what would it take for them to become CEOs. And they supported each other and, figured it out. Now, this is in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And eventually, each of them was promoted to the position. Today, there are formal organizations that help women do that. Here in California, there is so much work being done to get women on boards. But my feeling is that women need to get into the C-suite, mm-hmm. at least, as well as the boards. But I think women can have enormous impact in the C-suite. And there are more and more opportunities for women to get the training, the collaboration, and the coaching, the support to make that journey.
I was watching a wonderful documentary the other day on Uhura from Star Trek. And I had absolutely no idea of how she had such an incredible impact on NASA, on incorporating women and people of color.
How interesting.
Because it was a completely all white man's club, either, Air Force or military. And she literally was given 4 months and the backing to go around to everybody saying, you can be an astronaut, and, don't let the color, don't let the sex get in the way, and had all of these people sign up to go and through the program. And it just, they realized that we have got to be more inclusive. That's and it literally changed because of her movement. And I never knew this of her at all, right? Just knew her as the actress. And she literally changed history altogether, which then had a domino effect. And then you look at that movie, Hidden Figures.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Which is like, where were they ever given the credit?
Yes.
Right? Yes. Nobody ever heard of them until that movie was put out, right? So the thing is, there are so many women behind the scenes that are pushing forth, these agendas, putting forth this equality, putting forth these changes, and they're stepping out there because of that conviction. And it's a movement that's been around for a long time, but it needs to gather more momentum, and it has to be putting forth, all people of color, of all sexualities, based in equality, not a fight against men. And generally, generally, white men, not a fight against them, more of an education of your exclusive club is now over.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
The doors, we've just opened the doors. In fact, we've taken the doors off the hinges. And you look at Congress now and, how many more women are stepping into power. And it's like, once they're there and people see how efficient, how much they get done, everybody thinks the woman is going to go off the rails and be hysterical and not be able to cope with things. And like she's there kind of going, really?
And then you have Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, exactly.
Or my favorite is Greta
Mhm.
Thunberg. She is my
Yes.
favorite female
Yeah. Are
image.
you going to talk to the president? Why bother? He can't listen. And also the
Yeah.
Hispanic one. She's amazing as well. Very clear-headed and very articulate. Being attacked left, right, and center. Just keep so cool all the time. That's their issue, not mine. And I
That's
think
right.
that's something that we need to take on as women. There is always going to be people fighting against you wanting to rise up. We have to realize this is not an attack on us.
Right.
This is an insecurity on them.
And I actually like to frame all of that as a systemic issue
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's not about any individual woman or
Right.
any individual man or even about the relationships. There's a systemic factor that has been in business for so long that needs to be changed.
Yes.
When I was running my coaching consulting company, I had a lot of experiences running programs in big companies. And so I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Mm-hmm.
and what did and didn't work. And when I went to VMware in the around 2009, a few years later, I was asked to launch an initiative to address the discrepancies in the advancement of women, the recruitment, and retention of women. And I had learned a few very important lessons about how to do that effectively that I'd just like to share. The first was, instead of bringing all the women together, I asked to have a member of the executive team of each organization, male or female, but a very senior person in each of the 13 orgs, who would be the coordinating body for all of our efforts. So we had power and authority, as well as leadership in running this. Mm-hmm. And then the second and most impactful thing we did was we collected data. Mm. We treated this initiative like any other business initiative. And business initiatives start with data. So we collected 5 years of the data on hiring, promotion, and retention of both men and women in every org at 5 different levels. And we put these glorious manuals together with the data. And I went around to the senior execs and said, this is the story in your organization. And all of the places where women were underrepresented was in red, and all the places where it was equal or better was green. And they would flip through the data and they'd close it up and they'd say to me, oh, we have a problem.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? And so it was the quickest sell, so to speak, in my entire career, because the data convinced them they needed to do something. And like good big business people, mostly men, they were willing to do what it takes.
Well, it's what you're talking about there is bottom line. How is it affecting the bottom line? And let's face it, that most executives have been conditioned to look at the bottom line, not how they get to the bottom line. Right. Well, if your bottom line is shaky, is not growing, right? Then clearly there's something wrong between the bottom line and the first line, right? Right. So let's backpedal, right? It's like reverse engineering. Right. And looking at the problem of where the problem is. And it's like, you have a pool of creativity here. Why are you not accessing it? And
Exactly.
I lived in South Africa for a number of years, and for a while I was a rep. I was the first woman rep of Mobil Oil. I knew nothing about the oil. But the people I went to knew about the oil. Really what they were looking for was customer service, making sure they got things on time and got it at a good price.
Yes, yes.
But I will admit, I ran into so much sexism, not with the people that I went around to, but the people within the company I was working with. because there was a great deal of resentment. First woman rep, right? And I was bringing orders in. And what did I know? They'd been around for so long time. They knew the composition of oil. I didn't know it, so,
Right.
and consequently sabotage, happened. And so that's one story. Another one is I worked with another guy, and he was not addressed the problem to the higher ups. Again, I was out there to find out what the problem was. How can we rectify it to make sure that the service to you is beneficial to your bottom line? And when I brought it up at the board meeting, it was my boss got fired and I got offered his job. And I said, no, I don't want his job. I don't want his job. I just want him to do his job better, because he's not listening to me. He's not
That's
hearing me, right? And it was, again, you're under him, so therefore you're not valued. And it's like, but I'm here bringing you back the problem. It's now for you to look at how we can resolve it, not ignore it. And it's like, was it because I was a woman? And in many cases, yes, it was, because, South Africa at that time in the 70s was very, very sexist, very misogynistic. One of the reasons why I left. I think we have to be persistent as women and stand our ground, right? We have to, as you said, put down the data,
Right.
Show them at the bottom line. We know that as a species, men aren't great listeners. They're not, sorry, be married, they're not. But when you write it down and you let them digest it, and then come back after they've digested it, now you can have a conversation about it.
Correct. Correct. And we all, for me, it's all about communication.
Yes.
Determining based on the person you need to deliver a message to of any kind, what is their modality of hearing?
Yes.
You spoke earlier about, for a profile and 4 different styles. Yeah. And there are certainly different ways that people like to get information.
Yes.
And I've found that the more careful and deliberate I am in thinking through how it's going to be received,
yes,
the more effective the communication is. It's all about focusing on the recipient, not
100%.
on
how
you're feeling.
But can't you see it? Why can't you see it? It's so obvious. Right. Well, that from my perspective, it is. They're coming at it from a different angle. Right. Understand what their angle is, what kind of personality trait they are, and know that you've got to deliver it to them in their language.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Not impose your language upon them, because they're not getting it in their language.
No. I think the metaphor of languages, of really thinking about how hard it is to learn a foreign language and live in another language, and thinking about the language of, I talk a lot about financial literacy, being able to speak the language of finance, to be taken seriously as a business person, or to be able to speak the language of the person that you're talking to. You wouldn't try to speak English to a German that doesn't know English.
Right.
You would accommodate to their language. So
have a translator if you need to, right?
That's
and it's
right.
like, I know I could never speak finances to people. I could speak, the personal profit, who the people will buy. I know how to target that, but the financial crunch numbers, no. So what you do is you have somebody with you that is good at that.
Exactly.
Somebody else that's good at that, and you go in as a team, and as a team you present it. And now again, people are seeing the bigger picture instead of one perspective.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah, I have 3 children, 3 grown children, 1 grandkid now, which I'm going to go and see tomorrow.
Wonderful.
5-month-old, gorgeous, Giggly has just found his voice. So it's just absolutely wonderful. Waited a long time for this. And each child, they all came from myself and their father, but each child had a different personality. And it's like, and they're all interacting with life in a different way. And you as a mother have to be very in tune to that. Mm-hmm. You can't talk to this one like you can that one, because maybe they're more sensitive or they don't get it that way. And you learn how to adjust your language, right? So it's the same in business, to go in and say, it's this color and that's it, and we're going to talk in that language, you're not going to get much done. You're not going to get much productivity. An orchestra, if it was one instrument, even if there were a dozen of the same instrument, would be rather boring.
That's right.
What makes the orchestra so absolutely resonating are all of the beautiful instruments coming together in harmony.
Exactly. And there is considerable research at this point showing that companies that have diverse boards, the companies that have diversity throughout their company, actually have a far better bottom line. Catalyst is an organization that works with large companies and does a considerable amount of research. And they have study after study showing how there's a direct correlation between the percentage of diversity and the bottom line. So, what might have been intuitive 20 years ago now is based on hard fact as well as what we think.
I did a wonderful series called Let's Get Synced, and it was on the emotional environment about the environment, about climate change and how businesses are having to change and that fear of change. And so a lot of the people I interviewed were more over in Europe, more over that part of the world. And one of them has a company called Pure Necessity, a German guy that was on the other side of the wall. And he was 12 when it came down. So he had actually understood both sides because he had the experience of both sides. And, he said that it is about people and planet for profit. And that when you invest in the people, you invest in the resources, the planet, the profit will come. But the profit at the expense of people is a passé now. Because people have cottoned onto it. They do not want to be chewed up and spat out. We've seen too much of that. You walk into a building, you're going to go and see the CEO of that building. And if it's dirty, what's your impression? So who's the most important person in that building? The janitor.
Yes.
They've set the stage. Does the janitor get any praise? No, right? So everybody has an important role to play. And if you respect that and respect them and their contribution and that everybody is the village, then I think you have so much more loyalty, so many more people willing to come forth with an idea, so many more people willing to collaborate together. And it's like a good leader will create leaders out of everyone else.
That's a key message about leaders and executives, that the key is to create and develop leaders below you. I also believe that smart leaders hire people who are more talented than they are in the things that they need to accomplish, so that they're surrounded by very talented people and not afraid of someone being better than they are at a particular skill.
Yeah. You look at Richard Branson.
Yes.
He's definitely one. And I know that people who work for his organizations love working for his organizations because he really does treat his people well. And it's all about the innovation. And if you want to get ahead and you're showing that you want to get ahead and you've got an idea, he's open to it. Right. And I think that, imagine how much more a company can be if you are allowing people to step. And how many times does an idea sound ridiculous and so far-fetched until you reverse engineer it and you go, you know what, well, you could make something like this happen.
Right.
But you need those dreamers. You need those people that can see that big perspective to bring it down to a reality.
Correct. Yes.
The burden of having to be the full creator, the full conductor, the full everything all on your shoulders, like Devil Wears Prada. She had to have everything on her shoulders, and look what it made her. Right. So you don't want that burden as a leader. You want to share the responsibility.
Many years ago, I saw a documentary done on an orchestra that had learned to play without a conductor. And the conductor who had been there had really guided them to a place that they were so in sync that they could perform beautifully without, it was a him, without him being present. And I think there's a story in that about how to create communities that are self-sustaining
Yes.
without the authority person.
Mhm. I mean, what is authority? The word itself, when you hear it, you immediately think of authoritarians. You think of force. You think of persecution. You think of restraint. You think of somebody that's higher up than you that's going to make decisions on you. We look at that word, and it's really through how many years has had a negative connotation. That when you talk to someone, speak with authority, they immediately go, "Oh, I don't want to speak like a militant,"
Right.
because that's what we've associated it with, isn't it?
That's true. I actually like to think about it as authoring,
Mm,
self-authoring, that ought to author is to create,
yes.
it's to bring into the world, it's to initiate. And so an authority is someone who initiates certain dimensions of the life and work of the group that require decision making.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, it's just amazing how we can take words and give it a negative connotation. I mean, again, my last show last week was on optimism. And even optimism has taken a bad rap. Pie in the sky.
that's
You
right.
heads up in the clouds. You're not living in reality.
That's
And
right.
it's like, no, if we're not optimistic about who we are, what we stand for, what we do in life, then where's that self-generating enthusiasm, right? So it's it's good that you're changing the dynamics of the word and empowering people to step into authority without the fear of what authority has stood for.
Yes, yes, because I also think that many people conflate authority and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I try to keep making that distinction of that, because we've all known leaders who have authority who are not effective. We know people who are leaders without authority who are effective. Every combination exists.
Yes.
But I think I have found it most helpful to separate the two words as different dimensions of being at the head of an organization.
Now, you were a nun for 20 years.
Yes, yes.
So, as you said, you learned a great deal of structure and, a lot of those dynamics of leadership and accountability and community and collaboration and everything. What made you want to leave that and go into this completely other world, which is organizing? You kind of look to me as the conductor going in and organizing everybody into their own leadership, but what made you decide to do that?
So my life as a nun was very far from the stereotype of The Sound of Music or the kind of strict convent rules. My order was a group of intelligent, capable, accomplished women who ran schools for girls and women and nonprofits. And so the work that I've done has changed context,
Mm-hmm.
but really hasn't changed. The nature of the work hasn't changed. I did a lot of career counseling and campus ministry and teaching when I was a nun. And then after, when I left the community, which I'm still very close to and connected to, I did so because, in part, the Catholic Church had become very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't feel I could have as great an impact for women within that context as I wanted to. And moving into the corporate sector was a
Mm-hmm.
fascinating change because it was structured in a different way. But having learned how to work as Catholic nuns within the Patriarchy
Mm-hmm.
of Rome, I had insights into how to navigate patriarchal companies still in the late 90s. and how to maximize the talent of the women. And for me, it's always been about changing the world one woman at a time.
Right. I'm with you. Yes. And, in your years, not only as a nun, but now in the last years of what you're doing, although it's not enough, but, are you feeling at all uplifted the fact that there is this shift now to more women in authority? Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we
Of
discover the
course,
communities that are
I am
making a difference in
thrilled
the
that there
lives of
are more
others.
women.
Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people
I still see all the work that needs to be done.
Will be your inspiration.
That
will be there
some
for
things
you
that were
on
true,
your journey of life. Do enjoy.
Even
our next show is
insights that were helpful 20 years ago are still very helpful today. And I would have hoped that we had moved on further.
Yes.
So there's a lot of work to still be done. I am most encouraged by how many women are really committed to making it happen, and how many men today, many men are really committed to advancing others, not just difference across gender, but across race and ethnicity and background. I think it's a huge challenge, and I think that companies, and I'm a big believer of working through systems rather than just individually. I'll work with one woman at a time within a system. I think that by and large, people understand it is beneficial for the companies from a profit, as we talked about earlier. It's also the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I also think that we have a generation of parents in leadership, both men and women, who have told their daughters from the time they were born, they can do and be whatever they want. That was not true for me.
No. Know your place.
Especially the fathers who have told their daughters they can do anything they want. Those men are now in senior executive roles. And so they have a personal experience that informs their view of the business imperative in a way that an earlier generation did not.
Right. We're seeing so many what I call indigo children today. They're just I call they're channeling, they're just channeling that wonderful divine wisdom into rational logic and reasoning. And they're so gifted and they seem to be so together. I mean, look at Greta for one. And you're looking at them with such beautiful common sense. The youngest person I interviewed was 10 at the time, and she'd written a book, 365 Days of Gratitude with a Positive Attitude. And it was just simply, what I'm grateful for today. And, the statement that she said is like, I don't understand. If you're unhappy, why stay there? Go and do something that's going to make you happy.
That's right.
And you're like, as
out of the mouths of babes.
Exactly. And it's like, why do we make it so complicated? I'm not happy at this. So therefore, what am I going to do to change it? Instead, we wallow in it. And, I think that the more the men that see the benefit of women, the more parents that are seeing your children could be anything, the more we're going to see that next generation and the generation after, where we're going to see more of that equality, because it's no longer going to be about, what sex you are, what color you are. It's going to be about what is your ability. Do you get on with people? Because it's also, if they have an aptitude for learning and you have a great personality, they want you. Because they know they can teach you. You don't have to know everything to go after a job. You have to know enough to understand what the job is, and the willingness to learn, and enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm goes a long way.
Yes.
And I think that, one thing that I have found very important for women is to really, going back to, we've talked about this a little bit, going back to what they really want in their core. Because enthusiasm is about something that you want, whether it's for yourself or for your children or for the world. But enthusiasm is what motivates you to move and act and make a
Get
difference.
up every day.
Feel good.
Yes.
Feel good.
Yes.
And I think that women can sometimes get so caught up in delivering what is needed for the business and needed for their family and paying attention to the relationships that they can sometimes forget to listen to themselves and what they really want.
Yeah.
And that will give them the energy and the enthusiasm for something that even can be a hard thing to accomplish.
Yes. I'm always saying you are your business. We don't want to know that you are this person over here and that person. You're going to wear different hats for different situations. That's different. But we want to know the core of who I'm speaking to is the person you are. And in whatever business you're in, you are the representative of that business. And so you want people to, feel that you are opening and welcoming and communicating and listening. And you want that to be something, I really want to do business with this company because I really like this person that's representing it, because they feel real. I feel they can hear me. I feel they're going to be able to address my problem. They're going to be able to find my solutions. They don't want a robot. We've got plenty of automated stuff nowadays, and it's driving us all crazy. We want a human being. How many times are we screaming at the phone, just give me a human?
I did that 2 days ago for about an hour.
Yes. Press this for this. It reminds me of the, I think it goes back, I don't know how far, but a great skit. Somebody being murdered. I've witnessed the murder. They've seen me witness the murder. Press 1 for this, press 1 for that, press 1. Finally get through. Too late, I'm dead. And we're there. That's the scary thing, and it's the movie Brazil, a requisition for the requisition for the requisition. And it's like we've got so tied up in the bureaucracy. And what we really want is keeping it real,
Right.
Are you the same person everywhere else? Now, you may wear a different hat, but are you the same person? Because that's what people want to know. They don't want facades anymore.
Correct. And I think people who are that real person are very much in touch with who they are and what they want.
And why they're doing it.
And why they're doing it.
Yes.
And, and they're hugely successful because it comes from inside out. It comes
100%.
from inside out.
Yeah, everything comes from the inside out. We've been taught that to have a better house, a bigger car, flashy this, flashy that, that's what's going to make us happy. And I can't tell you how many CEOs I've interviewed. Is like, I bought into that and I was miserable. And I was working 18 hours a day and I lost my marriage and my kids and everything else. What for? I am now doing this and I feel more enriched and more abundant, even though my income has gone down to that, and it's like they feel more purposeful, because really in the end of it, we want to know we count, that what we're contributing is purposeful, that it's really meaningful. And so if we could chase that, what's inside of me, what beautiful instrument inside of me needs to come out, whom does it serve? How can I do this? And how can I invite the village to do it with me? Because that's really where we're at, isn't it?
It is. It reminds me of when I was a nun. In that framework, we were always seeking what we call the will of God. What was God calling us to do? And we would pray, and we would pray in community. So we would include others in that discernment. And now in the work that I do, I find that many of the processes that I used as a nun are highly transferable.
Yes.
And so when a woman is trying to decide, as 2 of my clients are right now, what next, this job or that job, stay or leave, one of the things that as a nun, we called a discernment process was, put simply, that you would imagine option A in as detail as you can.
Yes.
You know, when, where, with whom, how would you work, what will your life be like? And then spend a day or 2 days just living as if that was going to happen. And then switch and just go totally into the second option and imagine what that's like. And what happens in that process is that your inside out, your mission, your purpose, your drive, your desire has a chance to surface.
Right.
It's not all the SWOT analysis of strengths and pros and cons, but let it emerge from inside out. And that process can be very useful in identifying which of two options you feel more called to do.
I'm always making mini movies. I have done. I was a sickly child and in bed a lot. So no TV, no radio, nothing like that in those days, no laptop, you know, you were just on your own in a bare room. So off I'm making little movies in my head, and I still do scenarioing. Right.
Yes.
And it's and you know, imagine yourself in that, taking you down and go, no, that scene doesn't feel quite right. Switched it, you know. But I think one of the important things is make a connection with your core.
Right.
Your core, that soul wisdom, that heart, soul, spirit, purpose, that connection to the divine, whatever you wish to call it, that core will always see you right. And if your core says, don't do it, don't push it, I don't care how much intellectually it looks good.
Correct.
If the core says no, it knows more than you do. So if I get offered all the time, come and join me here, come and do this, come and do that. If my core, you know, oh, that looks good. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Da, 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 da. And the core goes, no, it's not for you. And that's not fear. That is its truth that knows me better than my head does. Right?
Correct.
And if you listen to that, it will always steer you right. But you've got to make that connection first.
Exactly. Like when we talked earlier about relationships, you need to build the relationships before you can start asking for something or really be effective. And the most important relationship is with your inner core.
Yes. You know, how can people know who you are until you know who you are?
Right.
How can they interact with you if you're all over the place trying to be something to fit into everybody else's expectation? Everybody's going to get a snippet of an illusion from you rather than the real you. Spend the time to know who you are. As you say, go and scenario in. You're in various scenario positions. And again, I really relate to this one. I really feel this one. My core really feels on that. Now you know your inner truth is coming out.
Correct. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
We don't do enough time on that, do it? It's again chasing the expectation, or you know,
we get busy. We get
yeah,
busy about details and to-dos, but we don't spend enough time to know our deepest desires.
Right. I mean, that, you know,
how we frame that.
The initial lockdown was as a gift in many ways to people who obviously didn't have to go through the actual virus, because it was a pause. And for everybody else, it was like, oh, coming down. It's like, I have not felt this relaxed in so long. Why am I always, you know, like it's turning the wire, keep turning and turning. If you keep turning it, it's going to snap at some point. But when we're in that, we don't feel it, we don't see it, we're just so wound up. And when we finally unwind and you go, I don't want to be in that state anymore. So what can I do that really feel I'm connected to, that I can be purposeful with, that I can be abundant with in every level, and not reach that same completely over busy, saturated state? And I think it was a gift for many people just to sit back and review and renew their lives.
I agree. I think what we're seeing now with the mass, what are they calling the mass exit, the grand exit of people leaving jobs, some of that is because people got in touch with their core. But my caution is what we talked about earlier, pause.
Yes. Yeah.
Pause and really discern, is exit the only strategy?
Right. Right. Yeah, it could be sit down with the entire association and say, this has given us pause for thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I will come back with this company, but I need to see a restructuring. And it was said on the news just a little while ago that business people are having to relook. Like people don't want to go into work every day; they'll go in a couple of days a week, or go in for meetings, and they want to prefer to work at home, or they want to see this change and that change. And it's like, listen to the people that work with you or work for you, because they're going to be so much more productive if you're willing to be flexible with them and their needs. So it used to be, do you want the job or not? There's plenty of people waiting for it. To I will decide if I want the job or not, but the circumstances have to be right.
Yes, yes, yes. People have much more freedom today.
Yes. And that's good, because when they have the freedom and they have that liberty to be, they're going to be more creative, they're going to be more loyal, and they're going to be more productive.
And more centered.
More centered, most certainly, because they're coming from that place of truth. We want everyone to come from that place of truth, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
As you said, there's a leader in every one of us. And even if you're just leading, that part of the band, it doesn't matter. We're our own leaders in our own life and our own decision making. Every single person is a leader, right? And you want to be a leader in your own life, making your own decisions on what you need for your life. But other people can shed the light on that. Other people can see things inside of you that you maybe can't see. And because that's their leadership role, is to show you all that you can be.
That's right. It's all about yourself, being in relationship with others, and understanding the systems that you're working within. And I guess before we end, I just want to say that, with so much suffering in the world today from so many things that are going on, I think it's also incumbent on us to be thinking beyond our world of our family and our business to how do we bring everything we've just talked about in terms of business into our global citizenship role. And how can we really contribute to helping others who don't have the fortune to be able to think about the things that we've discussed, because their life is so focused on simple survival.
Right. As we're seeing evidence of in many places at the present moment, for one thing or the other. Somebody was talking about the war that's out there, there's going to be another third war after the pandemic. And I said, we're already in that war. It's called division. And if we could all just fight the virus and not each other, we would get so much further. And if we could all, every drop of kindness in the ocean makes up the ocean. If everybody put forward a drop of kindness and compassion, nobody's asking you to give away your first child. We're asking you just a little drop. And all of those drops add up and they have a huge impact. But don't just turn the cheek or, and the other thing is, yes, you can get inundated with things that are going on. You can't help everybody. Choose some organization that you can and be dedicated to them, right? So it's just do something, please.
Yes, I second that.
Now, how do people get hold of the book? How do they get hold of you? And what are you offering them right now?
Yes. So the easiest way to get hold of the book is at Amazon. It can be pre-ordered and it will be delivered on the 21st. To reach me, I have a new website launching next week. It's just my name, www.ellensnee.com. And on there is information about my coaching services, my book, my speaking, and I am more than happy to speak with companies or groups of women about the topics in the book or anything about advancing women leaders in the world.
Excellent. And I'm going to spell the name Ellen, ELLENSNEE.com.
That's correct.
And they, of course, find you, on Instagram and on Facebook and the same. And of course, you're up on LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
And you've got a whole program, the executive coach for high potential senior level women, catalyst coaching, etc., in LinkedIn as well that you offer through there. So people can find.
We're also offering in October, we're going to be running a pilot program 4 Wednesdays in October at noon Pacific time, where we will be addressing different topics in the book, and we will have guest speakers
Wonderful.
speaking how each topic impacted their lives and the wisdom they learned. So right. Lots coming up ahead.
Wonderful. And we need it because we are in flux right now. We may be in flux career. We're definitely in flux in the world right now. There's still a tornado, a hurricane, of hysteria out there. And however much you want to avoid it, you can keep catching the edge of it because something else is going wrong, floods, fires, you name it. There's always something. Let's step into compassion for ourselves, for each other. Let's understand that leadership starts with us, for us, within us, to lead others, not because we're the authoritarian, but because we're an authority on that particular subject. Right? So we can help others. So we're all in this together. And really, quite honestly, we may have one person that we look up to that is the inspiration that begets the invitation, but it takes that person to inspire the whole team to come together to actually manifest whatever the product is. So we're all in this and we've all got a voice and we just got to find that voice, right? So thank you so much for sharing here today. I love the whole journey. I love the whole platform. Yes, we do need to see more women step up, and we're capable. We've got the abilities. We've just got to know that it's lying within us. We've got to pry open those doors. And if we can't pry open the doors, create our own doors.
Right? Yes,
right.
As many women are.
Many women are, and then people are saying, "My goodness, she used to work for us, and I never paid attention to her. And look what she's doing now; she's become the competition."
Yeah.
Well, pay attention, right? They won't be competing with you. So it's listen.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's been a delight to have this time with you, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and all the ways that the topics we've covered. It's been a pure joy.
The thing is, we rock, women. So step into it, right? So it's Ellen Snee, SNEE.com. Check it out for her book, for her programs, for everything else that's coming up. We all need that guidance right now. We all want to move forward. We may not just know how. We need that inspiration. She's got the book. She's got the programs. She's got the enthusiasm. So please step forward, folks. And until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. You will hear many, many shows here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. We have new shows for you out every week. Just find them on our podcast or What's New. If you feel that you have something to share that makes a difference in the lives of others, or you too feel that you could be a host, please contact me at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com and we will be glad to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.